Police have confirmed that the South African Revenue Service is conducting a raid at the Lalalusha mansion in Durban of socialite businesswoman and philanthropist, as well as television personality Shauwn Mkhize, also known as Mkhize. No further details are available. SARS also raided the Mkhize home in 2019 for allegedly owing the taxman more than 140 million rands. On to this now. Public Interest SA welcomes President Cyril Ramaphosa authorising the Special Investigating Unit to investigate Nedbank, Standard Bank and other implicated parties over controversial transactions for Airports Company South Africa and Transnet following delays and a year-long process by the Department of Justice. We're joined by Tebogo Khaas, who's a Public Interest SA Chairperson, to discuss this matter further. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. I mean, we know that this is an investigation which follows significant delays. The Department of Justice already taking over a year just to process the SIU's request for a presidential proclamation. What is your reaction to the latest news?
No, thanks, Mpo. We welcome the news. Definitely we do, especially more so because it has always been the case that the only entities and individuals that seem to have faced their comeuppance on state capture corruption has always been state entities as well as former and current public officials. And yet we know that in this relationship of corruption, there's always a corrupt and a corruptee. And oftentimes the ones who are actually corrupting those in the public sector are actually in the private sector. And we haven't seen much movement insofar as prosecution being brought against companies. Yes, we have seen some who have come up and made non-prosecution agreements with the NPA and others, such as ABB at ESCOM, and I can't remember who else. But we certainly haven't seen a lot of corporates being taken to court and taken through the process, and also individuals who actually are the ones who benefited the most, more than public officials themselves, who happened to find themselves employed by big companies. So we are grateful for this to happen. But remember, this is just a civil forfeiture. This is just a civil case. We still need to ensure that the NPA comes to the party, because this is just an SIU matter which will hopefully lead to asset forfeiture, but we need the NPA to make sure that it takes to court those who are implicated in corruption.
What do you think could be some of the reasons why we're not seeing more of those in the private sector who facilitated or may have even benefited from these questionable transactions? Why are they not under the scope of the National Prosecuting Authority?
Yeah, I hate to be the one saying it, but we know very well that the NP has gone out publicly and declared that and confessed that it doesn't have the capacity nor the muscle, never mind the will, to actually pursue those in the private sector, ostensibly because there may be high litigation costs which they may not be able to afford, or they may the process might just be dragged on for a long. I mean, Advocate Shamila Batoyi just recently went public and spoken about Stalingrad, and also not having the capacity to actually prosecute high-profile or complex cases, which is a worrisome thing, because what it means is that you and I ought to be in the state seeing the litigator of last instance. In other words, the state should be using all its muscle to make sure that they go against or they go after individuals who are accused of corruption and crime, irrespective of their status in society or their financial status. But now to actually do this is an application of the mandate that the NPA has got constitutional, which is to litigate corruption and crime without fear, favor or prejudice. Here you can see that they fear those who are loaded. You and I, ordinary people, can be taken to court willy-nilly, but not those with money. We've seen this even in Steinhoff, for example, where the NPA had no appetite to pursue Steinhoff. It is only the German and other foreign companies that actually went after Steinhoff and those senior executives.
What do you think the bigger impact is here, more so as we're talking about big banks, Nedbank, Standard Bank and other implicated parties, when it comes to the public trust in key financial institutions and state institutions?
Well, the trust has been eroded both in those big private sector entities as well as government's prosecution arm, the criminal justice system. On the one instance, with regards to the private sector, we have seen when there was allegations of manipulation by the big banks. We saw them get away with it. All big names were involved. They got away with not even a slap on the wrist. Those who did pay, they probably regret why they paid a little bit of a pittance that came out of that. So it doesn't really do well insofar as instilling confidence or building confidence in the state's capacity to make sure that those who do wrong actually live by the same rules that you and I are expected to live with. But second, and most importantly, it is very much upsetting when you see the NPA. Here we're not talking about the SIU. The SIU has done fantastic, phenomenal work insofar as its mandate is concerned. But we've got the NPA, which is failing consistently to prosecute matters, even matters that may not necessarily be complex or require huge financial injections. And yet, we expect as a public to be understanding and accommodating of such failures.
And of course, transparency and accountability will be central as these investigations get underway. What would you like to see? What sort of outcome are you hoping and the direction of these investigations?
We're hoping to see more private sector individuals joining those who are already on the dock. The likes of Petulem, I can't remember his last name, Siabonga Kama, and many others from Transnet, including the former CFO, are actually already now before court on matters related to this interest rate swaps, as well as some of the corruption relating to their locomotives. We want to see more private sector individuals joining them in the dock to account for their wrongful conduct. And that, for us, it will be something that will go a long way towards restoring trust in the National Prosecuting Authority.
Very well. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Leaving the conversation there, speaking to Tebogo Khaas, the Public Interest SA Chairperson there, bringing some reaction, of course, in the wake of welcoming the President is authorising the SIU to investigate implicated parties such as Nedbank, Standard Banks and others, of course, following a year-long delay by the Department of Justice.